Helping Pawpaw Walk, Restoration and Reciprocity for Subcanopy Forests. This is episode 5 in the Helping Forest Walk video series. I'm Connie Barlow, and this is about a minimalist approach to ecological restoration near my home in southern Michigan. Today is October 5th, 2025. September 29th, 2025. This is a first year Pawpaw showing up from seeds planted last year, germinated seeds planted last year. And this is at the Upland Bed Frame site. And the reason I want to show this here is that right next to it you can see some plants that have leaves. Now that one there, that's got tooth along the edge, but this one up here, that one's smooth along the edge, tends to have purple a little bit in the center. That upper one there, you can see a little bit of purple there, but you can see it has this raceme up here that comes by in the late summer. But the easiest way to tell this, you just reach down with your hand and with your thumb on the top, index finger underneath. If the top is not silky smooth, it's not a pawpaw. So coming down here, this is a pawpaw. Often the first leaf coming out will have a little configuration like that. You see it's the lowest one there. Also it has a rosy lower stem that in some other site I'll be able to show that. Supplement. 2 days later, October 1st. Wow. I had planted, 6, 8 germinated seeds in here. And I found 2 more to the left. This one here, it would have come up with the seed still on it and then dropped it off. And then over here, right there, a third. And then scrolling back, there's the one with the rock, the elder. All right. September 29th, 2025. Now I've started down the trail from the upland, going to the bottomland. And my first stop will be just before getting to the bottomland. And I'm going to be stopping over right at this tree fall log area here, and right on the other side of that there's going to be a pawpaw from an earlier year. So just above where the trail goes into the bottomland here, I've stopped by this log. I'm standing right on the trail here. I've stopped by this log, and right over next to the rock that I placed there is a very tall, beautiful pawpaw. Lovely to see it, getting some sunlight here. And so this is one of the rare ones surviving from a previous year when I just didn't have that many seeds to plant. Now we'll continue over to here, and I planted a set of 5 that I call the portal torreas that are right over in here. Weeded out a few privets, and that marks where the bottomland trail goes this way, and then another one goes this way to all the ones that are over in group 8. Everything but group 8 is over down this way. There goes a chipmunk along the upper log to the left. Whoops, off to the right. That's where I just came from. And here's the trail now bottoming out. And here's the part that goes off to the right here. And then you can see onward. And there's a lot of sunlight in here because the robinia in particular, which is a pioneer woody tree. Doesn't grow very tall, but the robinia has been falling all over the place, as well, of course, ash. We've had ash falling, as everywhere in Michigan. But the time for the robinia, it's done its job. So now, coming right along here, right along the trail, in the center there, you see that I weeded out some privet, and I will post in now a photograph of how I raised these 5. I potted my east-facing window, and then I planted them all together, and we'll see which ones take off, whether some just put the rhizomes off to try to make their own tall stem. But I wanted to plant them all together because any creatures that feel like sampling them, going, what is this? There'll be other leaves and stems that are still alive. And I only pulled out a few privets, surrounded by privet, because I don't want to encourage anything to go in here. And the privet gets quite large over here, so I don't think deer are ever going to go and use that as a little trail. There's just no reason to do that, when instead they can use this trail, and then if they want to go up slope, they can use this trail, and then if they want to go into the other bottomland, here's a trail that goes off right here. Okay. Now I was going to skip this early planting section to start off at the oldest planting section, but I just took a look over here, and unlike 5 days ago, there were 2 window pot grown pawpaws that I planted this past summer. The least healthy one, and it's the only one I've ever seen in this bad a shape, is right here, but it's still there. But the healthy one, the real tall one that I planted, here's what's left of it. There you can see that dark red stem, and right there, a week ago, there was a higher part of the stem and had at least 3, 4, or even 5 leaves. I'll put in a photograph of what it used to have. But this is to be expected. This is what I plant in a large amount. And fortunately, the babies that, where I planted germinated seeds this summer, the babies are still all fine. Okay, so here's one right there. Baby pawpaw. Another baby pawpaw. And then there's 2 off over here. Now that's a privet. And there's one there, and then over on this side of the privet there's another one. So there's 4. But the reason I leave the privet is because this is a good thing to kind of encourage any deer coming through here to step over this whole batch. So it's possible that one could get stepped on at some point. Yeah, but the 2 on either, or 3 on either side of that one will probably be fine. So let me take a little look here, and you can see that I specifically planted this in a place that it doesn't encourage the deer to go through at all. And there's going to be the main one here with quite a few growing in, and then there's going to be some more over here. And here's the hackberry that someone last late winter, early spring, put some markings on to mark where the trail is, which is right there. And so we're going to continue now and just go straight back. I will stop at the guardian tree, the spiral tree, but other than that, we're going to go straight back, river this way, and then we'll take a left and go to the oldest patch, because there I really learned something important. We'll start there. This is the guardian tree, the spiral tree, and this is the spot where the bottomland trail stops walking directly to the river. The river itself it's just, you can see where all that sunny patch is over there. It's there, and I think maybe down at this level, the bank's about 6 or 7 feet down to the river. And you can see somebody with a red marker also marked that this is where we go in this direction. This is old growth amber honeysuckle, and For now, I welcome these trees here. They're very old growth, but you can see why the invasive honeysuckle is problematic, because once you get this full canopy here, it just shades everything out. You see, there's nothing else growing underneath it. But it's not everywhere. You know, out there's a lot of places now where ash have been falling, elms continue to fall on occasion, where it's possible for me to directly plant pawpaw and get good sun so that they can head up to the surface. But this is the trail that I came from that goes back through here, and you can see a lot of honeysuckle in here. But now we're going to be heading that way. I'm pausing here for a moment because you can see I came from here, wandering on the trail, heading parallel to the river, heading downstream. But I wanted to stop here to show the size of this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful black walnut. I mean, this is a monster tree up there. And it's right along the trail, and this is the place where we get the biggest mayapple patch. It just surrounds the tree all the way out to the trail here, comes around here. But this is one of the beauties here in the Bottomlands forest. Now right there you might think that's a spruce. There are no spruce, native spruce, this far south in Michigan. You're just not. But that's the biggest black cherry I've seen back here. That's huge. And it's leaning quite a ways over, getting sun. So now we will continue along the trail. Taking a little side stop before I get to the real patch, the old patch that I want to start by. This is just so you can see the river. The main trail that's going to go back and keep going downstream will take us that way to the old patch. But here you can see a little side trail. Actually, this has been here longer than my pawpaw planting. So this is a pretty well established trail. But here you can see, here's the mighty Huron River. And you see it's built its own levee up to the left. That's kind of normal for rivers. But here it is, really low right now. Fortunately, we had a rain about a week ago, good rain. But it hadn't rained for about 2-3 weeks before that, and it doesn't seem it's going to be raining again. But this is the Huron River. And I try to keep it the privet and cut back to go all the way back to there, which was the swim hole where my late husband used to go in every time we walked back here, and even in the coldest months. Almost 2 years ago is when he died. You can't really see the trail here with all these fallen leaves, but it's here. The river where I was standing is back there. The river flows downstream in this direction. And here you can see another old growth Lonicera mackii, amber honeysuckle. The trail continues through here, and ultimately I am going to get to that elder. But I just wanted to stop here because the light conditions are good right now for showing all three of these elders. Marked by the rocks, you see there's 3 rocks here. This is one of the elders from an earlier year planting. There's another one there that had apparently never been eaten back, but I hadn't noticed it before this summer, whereas I was aware of this one. And I was aware of the one that was right in the center here, which was definitely doing very well, so well that I ended up planting germinated seeds all around it, and boom, look at how many, those tall ones, those are the pawpaws. I mean, there's a lot of them here. But as I touch this area here, I can't even feel a lower stem. Something just pulled that out. Maybe a deer, I don't know. But first time it was gone was about a week ago when I came here. And so I'm hoping it will be able to come back next spring because it had a full summer of good photosynthesis, you know. And these things, they keep coming back. They keep coming back. So the other reason I wanted to show this is to show the variety of plantings that I do. Over here again, those are the ones, germinated seeds in a weeded patch. But I also came back here and I put in a window pot of 4 that I'd grown by my east-facing window and then planted them. But I pulled them apart here, and you can see 1, 2, small one there, 3 in the center, and then another small one here, and just one rock. I think that if I put a rock, a visible rock, it'll prevent a deer from walking the way I did and thinking it can continue. Again, I really try to plant things where my weeding isn't going to make the deer think, oh, a new trail. I mean, there's no way to get through here. So, and with that rock right in front, that should, if a deer comes in here, it should prevent the deer from stepping on that plant. All right, I've come to the end of the trail. You'll see there's no way for deer to really get through this area. And this is one of the butternut trees that we have here. It's still producing nuts, has a different bark from what the black walnut has. And before I show you the existing pawpaws, I found last year black walnut, and I found last year butternut. And there you can see how different they are. I have never been able to find a butternut with its original green rind attached on it. In fact, I'll move over here. Here you can see there's the green rind on a walnut. And then back over here, this is, and then on the opposite side of the butternut, you can see where a squirrel, some kind of rodent, got into there and ate it. But anyway, this is where I did an actual experiment in, let's see, that would have been November 2022, I would have started this experiment. And right in this area here, I have 5 pawpaws that had come up, not the first summer, but the second summer they did come up. And only 3 of them have any leaves left now. Now, all 5 of them were doing just fine, hadn't been nibbled off at all until about 2 weeks ago. So here's where they are. Here's one right there. Here's 2. And then under here, where is it? Yeah, under here there's one that has 1 leaf, but you can see, here I can go in, you can see how many times this has been nibbled off for years and keeps coming back, keeps coming back. Now, the one that was biggest got totally taken. It was right here between these rocks, and I felt around there, and it's just gone. It's just gone. And this one here, oh boy, let me see, how can I point to that? Right there, yeah, there you can see it. This just got nipped off just in the last 2 weeks, okay? But it had, look how long that stalk is. That will be able, I think all 5 will come back just fine because they had all summer to photosynthesize. Now, speaking of photosynthesis, I would never plant in a site like this again. It's just got way too much shade. Here's a old growth Lonicera there. Again, I'm standing right by the butternut. What do we have here? Yeah, more Lonicera. See, they have these red berries, and the birds eat them and disperse them very well. And then the black walnut there, but there just isn't much sun back here. So the most I'd been able to count was 15 or 16, including the 5 over here, and then I had 5 or 6 over in here. I'm going to get my stick so I can point out things here. Okay, so this is obviously one right here, and here's another one right here. And this one used to be the biggest one. It hadn't been eaten off last summer, but it got eaten off. And it's a very tall stem, so it had a lot of photosynthesis time. It will definitely come back next year. And then there's another one, yeah, this one right here struggled a bit. But now the reason I planted all these, well, first let me go over here, walk over here, and these are a little bit away. And what do I have now? I think maybe 3 or 4. 4, okay. Pointing again. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, that's a red stem. That's 5. Okay, the most I'd ever counted here was 6. So these lasted well. But these are all the same age, and so what has it been about? 3 summers, and this is as big as they are. But again, there's no deer trail that continues through here. So I had done this experiment in order to see if there was any difference in how fast Pawpaw would come up if it was scarified or not scarified, and it didn't make a difference because I also made that experiment keeping things in my kitchen and and just watching what happened. So thank goodness I made this experiment, because when you plant Pawpaw long distances apart, the creatures need to grow accustomed to, ooh, this stem is poisonous, these leaves are poisonous, the whole plant is poisonous. They have to learn, and so that means that a new fawn next year, unless it somehow watches its mom and detects an ew from its mom, don't try that. The next year's worth of deer are going to need to learn the hard way that, well, hard for me, easy for them. You just smell it, bring it into your mouth, cut it off, and just go, oop, I can taste the poison. I mean, evolution does not do stupid things. And again, Pawpaw is native to southern Michigan. So even though the local deer here would not know it, we don't have any Pawpaw anywhere near here except in people's backyards. There's a few people that have them in downtown Ypsilanti. But they have to learn. And so it was here where I had such success with so many of them being visible that I could see above ground. I think I planted a total of 30 seeds, none germinated at that point, just scarified and non-scarified in these 3 regions here. And that was enough for me to make the decision that henceforth I'm planting in weeded patches of at least 20 seeds, sometimes as much as 100 seeds in one spot. So let me show you where we're going to go next. Here again is looking at the old end of trail elder patch with these lovely ones right down here. So I'm standing at the left edge of the patch, and just over here you can see I've kind of created a trail looking back there, but it's nothing that would make a deer think it could keep going. So of course, whenever I do something like this, not only the rodents explore patches, but the deer go, what's going on here? And so they come back here too and just look, but you might step in. But look at this. Look at the pawpaws here. Oh my gosh. I did a count last week, so I'll paste in what I have growing here, but this is a lot. And I'll also paste in how many I planted. This is actually called Patch 1. And that means that the very first thing I did this year when I got my new insight into planted weeded patches was this is the first patch that I did. And so this is where you see the really giant ones here. And so these are all new. I put no elders in here. There aren't any old ones. These are just new and spectacular. All right, so now we're going to head back to the little trail there and go in that direction, and we're going to go to patch 1.5. This is patch 1.5. It's only about 25 feet walking back upstream on the main trail. 1.5 actually means that I planted it after I planted all of the main numbers and put this in between patch 1 and 2 several weeks later. But here you can see a young one coming up right there. And then there's another one, oh yeah, right there in the center. Let me see if I can get in a little closer. You can see a bit of a rosy, that'll turn more rosy as it gets older. And then there's another one right there. And then, right where that leaf is pointing, right there, that's another one in the center. Now, as I recall, I mean, I have a notebook of all this that I keep posted, plus a web page where I keep posting photos. This is the first time I've seen any babies coming up here at all. So these four are September 29th, 2025 is a first recognition. And oh my goodness, I see another one. I see another one right, how do I get there? Yeah, right here. Right there. Yeah, another baby. Ooh. Is this one? Yes. I just got the leaf off of that one. Where is it? It's to the left of here. Yeah, right there. Okay. Oh my gosh. I just saw another baby right here. But look, they're all young. You know, I didn't see them a week ago. Now, what's interesting about this patch is that this patch is where I planted from a window pot initially three. You can see one there marked by a stone, second one there marked by a stone, and a third one marked by a stone. Now, even though I didn't need the stones in order to see, the reason I started marking these with stones is that this spot, deer had come here. You see, this whole thing was weeded out. You know, privet along here, a few nettles, mostly privet, but this was weeded out. And the main trail is right over here. So deer were curious, and it actually walked. There was a deer print right near that one, and I could see the prints because I troweled up the soil a lot to get the seeds deep, and I could see the prints going right straight across here. My view here is try to be as minimal intervention as possible, put in a heck of a lot of germinated seeds so I know they're viable, so that over the years, the new creatures of every year, unless somehow they learn from their parents, the rodents, the rabbits, and the deer, will be able to sample and yet not wipe things out because there'll be so many next to each other here. All right, we're going to go back to the main trail in there. Again, the river's right back there heading downstream this way, and we're going to go up to patch 2, which I think is a good 30-40 feet up the trail, and then again off to this side, this east side. Oh, one more thing before I head over to patch 2. The reason I plant on the east side of the trail is look at how dark and with no greenery underneath that dense amber honeysuckle Lonicera area. So of course I got to realize that the place, even on a cloudy day, I know where to plant, because when I see, especially when I see tall plants, and earlier there were some tall annuals or perennials that were deciduous that have already done their thing. But when you see this level of plants, and oh my gosh, look at this, is a great view. The walnut dropping its leaves. Yeah, what a great view. There's a lot of sun back in the bottomland now. You know, the destruction from the emerald ash borer. Well, the good news is that I can plant pawpaw, and eventually, with a little human help of consistently kind of weeding back as the pawpaw gets bigger, it will overtop the privet, and it will overtop the Lonicera. The Lonicera cannot grow nearly as tall as pawpaw. If the pawpaw has full sun, can stride up to the canopy, overshadow, and then overshadow the Lonicera, and without any human help, we'll be able to drive it back once it overshadows it. Okay, for patch 2, I came along the trail, patch 1.5 and patch 1 or further down here, but actually about 25 feet. This is a black cherry. I know to come in here, and you see all the greenery. That means there's sun here. And in fact, one of the big exciting things for me I decided to plant here is that when you can get Asteraceae family, the daisy family, to grow this big, you know you got sun. You know you have sun. So, looking straight down here, you can see a weeded patch, and 1, 2, 3, let's see, 4, 5 big ones, and then each of there's 2 little ones right here, and then a little one, yeah, right over there. So this doesn't have many coming in yet, but I think I only planted about 30 here. But what's interesting is where they are coming up is the area that would have had more sun. But you can see here, we've got some nettles over in here, moving in this direction. Yeah, look at the sun. Got privet here, some tall privet. Oh gosh, and more Asteraceae. Wow, tall ones there, taller than me back there. But you can see this is no place a deer would even think about going through. And I might mention, when you see all these deciduous leaves here, we don't have, these are really oak leaves mostly. Right after planting, earlier this summer, I would gather on my walk in here in the upland, I would gather a big bag full of fallen leaves from last year that were still on the ground and put them in here to cover, mostly to prevent desiccation. I did have to water a few times some of these patches, but really to prevent desiccation. And what I'd like to show here is right where my feet are. Remember, I leave some area for me to stand. You see the grass coming through there? What I found fascinating is in a lot of these patches where I decided to plant, I would go in, and whatever the nettles or privet or whatever, I would find that there was a grass layer there. You can see it right here where I hadn't weeded it at all. A grass layer right in there amidst the nettles and, oh, a cute little poison ivy. Okay. Here's a log that fell. There are logs everywhere. And when these things come down, suddenly there's full sun for a while. And I think that maybe the first thing to come in are the grasses. But here you can see how open the area is up here. The bottomland is really open now. So the bad news of the emerald ash borer and the elms also going down is good news for ecological restoration of the subcanopy. which otherwise is completely taken over, as you can see in many areas here where there hasn't been a big tree landing on it, is the amber honeysuckle. A little side trail from patch 3, original along the main trail, little side trail goes off to the river here, and you can see how high this levee area is, and the river is right down below it there. Gosh, what would that be? Maybe 12 feet or so, maybe 15, I forget. But anyway, this area right here, there's this enormous grapevine growing along the bottom here, and I put in a rock to mark right there in the center. The rock marks one of the old, actually just last year, early summer of 2024, I would have planted a total of 6 germinated pawpaw seeds here. 3 would have been in this area, with this one's the only one that came up. And then 3 above here, and there was one, I'll put in a photo of what it was. It was gorgeous. And boom, taken right down. Maybe it had enough time for photosynthesis in order to be able to come back again next year. But I could not feel, I couldn't feel even a lower stem. So from this one right here, and it's grapevine, again the river is there. If I look over this way here, where I'm standing, you can see there's a trail. There are only 3 that showed up this summer, all marked by rocks. Here's one that showed up again this summer. And this one I had not seen in a previous summer. Here's the 3 rocks marking it, and this yellow leaf points to what's left of it there. It was beautifully tall, and I'm sure it'd come up the previous summer, but I hadn't noticed it. I'm sure it'll come back. And then last year I planted a germinated seed because I wanted to try to expand the numbers in this area right here, and you can see, yeah, there's the rock. Actually, let me walk back there. Let me take a walk back here, because I want to point out that the leaves turn yellow in the fall. This is the first set I've seen that's beginning to yellow out. And I got a rock on either side, and when I saw that this summer, I put in, I don't know, a dozen or so ungerminated seeds in this area, hoping to just expand the population here again. And that's, you know, of course, because now I think, yeah, look at, here's the diamond bark. This is an ash that is, oh, there's other things around it, but it's still alive. This is good, it's still alive. I put in more because, you know, every year the new crop of rodents, rabbits, and deer are going to be testing these things out. So you need to have a lot of them in close range to one another in order to have any survive to the point that they get tall enough where the rodents and rabbits aren't eating them anymore and the deer just leave them alone. All right, so now we're going to walk not to 4, here's my stick down here. I'm going to walk not to patch 4, you know, that's, I would have put in patch 4 right after 3, but I'm going to take this little side trail here and go over to what I call patch 7 and patch 6. Glory, glory. Now, this was one of the seedlings I grew this summer in a pot on my east-facing window and then planted here. And I planted another one from the same pot, same time, and you can see it. You can see it here. And the reason I did that was I was so excited to see for the first time an old planting that I had done right in here, and I'll show pictures of what it looked like And then something stepped on it. A rabbit hopped on it, a deer stepped on it. I've got photos of it having been stepped on, and you can see where it had some herbivory in a previous year, but it was gorgeous. And I didn't think that would happen because, look, nobody can go past here. So anyway, I planted, I forget, 20, 30 seeds here. And this one here came up a couple weeks ago, was the first time I saw it. And today is the first time I saw this one. And again, I weeded it out, planted the seeds, and then added leaves. All right, I'm looking straight up at this point. I went back to the trail. I was starting to feel a little faint. I am 73 years old. I don't have the capacities I used to have. So I'm lying down and I'm looking straight up. And what do we have here? Lonicera. And here, you can see right here, my foot. The trail is right in this direction here. But I'm taking this because I call this the underpass. You have this, the only place on the trail that you have to just kind of go under. But I'm just going to rest and do a little reflection here. And so what I was trying to do here is not only to restore Pawpaw to this area, but deliberately to show a different kind of ecological restoration that doesn't require chainsaws or fires, and especially with Lonicera, chainsaws and fires don't do anything. They come back from the base and they just keep putting up new stems. That's what they do. But my intent here is minimalist, multi-generational, ecological restoration, where we just don't brutalize the invasive subcanopies from other continents. Instead, we just weed out a little bit, find where our own canopy falls have made an opening, weed that out, put in some pawpaw, and I'll start showing some pictures and maybe some video here from my visits to Draper Houston Meadows Nature Preserve of Washtenaw County, one of the preserves there, where it's a wild pawpaw patch. I'll put in the caption the video that I posted. But what you'll see there is it's called a pawpaw patch because as long as a few seeds get in there from, back in the day, the giant mastodons, the seeds are huge, the giant mastodons would have pooped them out. And even now, if we had black bears around here, black bears travel long distances and they'd eat the whole thing and just poop out the big seeds. But we don't have that. This is a post-industrial site. Ypsilanti is a collapsed auto city. At Draper Houston, you'll see my video and photos of these long surface to shallow underground stems. You call them rhizomes. But they can reach out easily 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 feet, and then come up in a shaded area, and the main stem will keep sending it photosynthase to help it grow, and eventually it can grow taller than what we have here, Lonicera and Surly deprivet. Whoops, I'm short on battery, so I'll finish this off as I edit it at the computer. October 1st, 2 days after I last recorded. This is where I was laying down here, recovering from feeling faint. Spent some time on the computer and I came back here. It's just 2 days later. Boom, over there, this is the last pawpaws, the elders that we saw, and had a couple young ones too. Well, the elder on the right has now had its top lopped off. There's a little bit of a leaf left, but you can see the top of the stem. So it's just an example of how important it is to plant in bulk. The local critters will sample things. All right, let's continue. We're going to be heading back this way and over, maybe 40, 50 feet to another big walnut over there. And that's where we're going to see patch 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, And then I had 5 I planted way out here. 6 I planted next, 7, and then we'll also take a quick look at 8. Actually, no, we'll take a quick look at 9, and then I've got one last thing going on in a set of patch 8 that goes from 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, 8E, 8F, FG, 8H. That's where we're going to end up. One last thing that I've learned, valuable, and a practice I'm doing now. And actually I learned this practice from Robin Wall Kimmerer, Indigenous Elder. So let's continue. Over here, patch 6. I just walked from there, come through here. You can see how dark this area is, full of mature amber honeysuckle. This is not a walnut. As I go up, it's got to be an ash because it's all dead, and the red that you see on there, the red leaves, are from this poison ivy. Look at how old that is. Wow, that is remarkable. So, turning around here, I'm standing where's the best place to look, and this is a disappointment. First time I've seen this happen. I'll put in a photo now first of what this group of 5 window potted seedlings that I planted used to look like. And here's what they look like today. But you see, several of the tops have been cut off, but you know, there's still a lot of leaves there. There's still a lot of leaves there. So this is important for planting in bulk. Now, I have not yet seen any of the plantings here, the germinated seeds that I planted in 2 spots. But this is a place where I really learned, be very careful, Connie. Deer will probably make a trail through here once I cut away the weeds. And they did. They did. So we'll see. You can see here, there's no way a deer's going to come through in here. But, gosh, a couple weeks after I planted this, maybe a month later, I went back there and I weeded. I'll put in a photograph that I took that shows exactly where it was. But I will not go back there again. And that's because while I was back there weeding, at a nearby log, maybe 6 feet away, I saw a lot of bees or wasps. It was probably wasps since the log was on the ground, swarming. I didn't take a picture of that. But anyway, this is what's so important for learning. And look at all the sun that this got now. I mean, that's why they could get so thick and beautiful their first year here. And then again, a quick look through. Look at that, mature Lonicera, blocking everything. You don't see anything growing back there. And then here's the ash. And I should mention that obviously this is the reason that this area opened up. You can see this tree fall here, and oh my gosh, look at that. This would have been a branch that fell from the ash behind me. All right, well, there's some more leaves falling today. Beautiful day. Ooh, I heard a walnut just fall. Have to be careful of that. Oh, now here, this is a good place to see. I'll go up close. Here you can see the red leaves of the poison ivy going up this tree, and by golly, that's a walnut over there. Okay. And they're impervious to pests, at least for now. The ash trees are all taken down, being taken down by the emerald ash borers. All right, so I've got one more thing I'm going to do off right at the river, head back and over the river before I continue the rest of the way this way. I took the little side trail to the river, and there you can see my walking stick right by the base of a black willow that's losing various of its branches. As I go up, you can see there's a branch there that's already fallen off into the river at some time. But this is where my husband and I used to also go into the Huron River, right here. There's an elm to the right there. And he used to sit, for a long time, he'd sit right by this black willow, right where my walking stick is, while I was planting pawpaw seeds. And so this is where I've just put in some more pinches of cremains. I do this every time that I come out here by the river. Back out to the spiral tree, the guardian tree, that I already talked about in episode 1. This is where the trail from the upland into the bottomland actually comes out from that direction, heading towards the river, which is over in this direction, pretty close. And this is where the trail then comes back this way. So patch 9 is the furthest upstream patch that I planted. And this was planted very late. I'm not even going to try to look. There wouldn't be anything back there, just germinated seeds. But 9A is back here. A lot of tall privet and some other non-woody plants that sunny spots were growing tall. And then 9B was over in there somewhere. And the river is, golly, maybe 50 feet off in this direction. But you see the sun coming into the privet area here? I was going to plant, and I started in there, and wow, did I feel some pain. And I got stung by a couple of yellow jackets, so I stopped planting here and went elsewhere. I want to end with an important point, the only last important point I need to make. It has to do with learning from the critters. You've already heard how I've learned from the deer about where and where not to put in a weeded patch to ensure that the deer don't turn it into a trail. But this area here is the reason I had to wear a mosquito net hat for a couple months this summer. And that's because this whole area here, you can see it's just a mud bottom. But these trees here, these are all red maples in this area. And it continues on in this direction too. But everywhere you see in here, all the way here, around through, and then past this little green patch and back that way towards the upland, and the portal tree is back in there. This is the area that all summer long was creating mosquitoes. It's an ephemeral pond. If it's not too poisonous, given the industrial collapse that we had back here, I'd love to see salamanders here someday laying their eggs. I don't think there's any here. How would they get back here post-industrial? So there you can see post-industrial. There's just a lot of litter and other kinds of things back in here. That's a metal plate. So it's really easy to see where to come in here to either my last planting or my second to the last planting. And it's right in here, one right in front of that log in here, and then another one over in here. And this would be patch 8H. And so this is the last point I want to make. It's a very important point for what I'm doing here and why it gives me such satisfaction. So here is where I planted in 8H. It has two pieces to it. This here, I planted 21 germinated seeds in here and came back 3 days later and saw only 3 had been brought up by some kind of a rodent with, of course, its roots still attached. The roots are poisonous. The rodent was just curious. Now what's interesting to me is when I first weeded this patch, there was no rodent hole here. Now that hole is large enough that I think it might be a chipmunk rather than just a small vole hole. And over here, along the log, right in this area here, is where 20 germinated seeds were planted. And that's August 30th is when I did that, and then I came back 3 days later. And from here you can easily see where I had just filmed out here, and what had been the ephemeral pond, mosquito maker. No mosquitoes now. And let's take a look at rodent activity over here. First I'll show close-ups of this hole. Was actually here when I was weeding, and normally I would suggest that if you see something like that when weeding, you stop. But I'd already done so much weeding here that I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep going. And so I did. Came back 3 days later, and now not only was there that one hole, there was this second one. So again, I planted 20 seeds in here, germinated seeds, and 3 days later at this site, I saw 7 that had been brought up. Pawpaw seeds brought to the surface, root intact, and of course I replanted those. And then neither here nor at the other one has the rodent done anything wrong since then. It's just curious. I really disrupted the territory. So now I'm going to show you as the last thing I've learned from the rodents. I want to work well with the rodents. And so I'm going to do something that Robin Wall Kimmerer taught me. And that is the importance of reciprocity. And in fact, she's the one who authorized me to use a term that she and her elder, Henry Lickers, had created about a dozen years ago, helping forests walk. In this climate warming, they need to move. And the term I had been using for 20 years was assisted migration, but I love helping forests walk. And she taught me reciprocity in her braiding sweetgrass. But right here, what you can see is I had gathered in the upland. Here we have some white oak acorns and pin oak acorns. The oaks do not grow in the bottomland. They're not bottomland trees. And so by each of the 3 holes, I'm going to be putting in an acorn of pin oak and an acorn of white oak, rolling them down into each one. May the forest be with you.